In war, we're used to tanks deciding the fight. But on May 10th, 2025 at Dresbah, it wasn't the tank. It wasn't the infantry. It was a weapon hiding far behind the front lines, guided by the eyes of a drone and the decisions of a few exhausted soldiers. The Russian assault came, and in minutes their formation broke apart. The most dangerous tank in their arsenal, the T-72, collapsed under the pressure of precision artillery fire. This battle flipped the script of what matters in modern war and left one chilling truth: the tank may no longer rule the battlefield. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Russian armor advanced in numbers, but Ukraine had already seen them long before they reached the line. How? The Russian assault unfolded the way their doctrine had promised for years. A spearhead of T-72s led the front, their turrets scanning left and right, followed closely by BMP infantry carriers kicking dust into the late morning air. The plan was old but trusted, overwhelmed through speed and mass. Crews believed the weight of steel and tracks rolling side by side would intimidate defenders into hesitation. If defenders froze even for a moment, the column could cut through and establish a pocket before artillery or air assets could respond. To the Russians, the sound of engines rumbling in unison was more than noise. It was the assurance that firepower and presence alone could shatter a defensive line. That assumption had worked before. Tanks traditionally won space by appearing suddenly, forcing troops to scatter under the pressure of their armor and guns. A column that heavy rarely needed subtlety. The expectation on both sides was the same. Once tanks punched forward, infantry would flood behind them, clear trenches, and widen the breach. In the Russian view, surprise was built into the sheer speed of that movement. But hidden high above sat something that rewrote the rules. A Phoenix drone hovered at 750 meters, far out of reach of the advancing column and almost invisible against a pale sky. Its thermal sensors tracked every engine and turret as the steel convoy pushed across the open wheat fields. What appeared silent and secure to the tank crews was, in reality, wide open. Data streamed back in real time, each vehicle tagged by position and velocity. Ukrainian commanders did not just know a column was coming. They knew the exact distribution of armor, the pacing between vehicles, and which turrets rotated slower than others. The drone's onboard processor made those decisions faster than human analysts could. Threat classification, target recognition, and movement analysis came out of the sensors in seconds. Without those tools, artillery crews would have stared at maps, estimated ranges, and guessed trajectories. Now the guesswork was removed. Every hesitation vanished because Phoenix delivered coordinates that required almost no adjustment. For the Russians, the strength of their maneuver was supposed to be speed, yet their pace worked against them. By the time their tracks ground into the soft soil, Ukrainian fire units had targeting solutions ready. A cycle that once demanded several minutes closed in less than 45 seconds. What they believed to be a shock assault was already cataloged, mapped, and lined up for fire support before the first turret could even angle toward Ukrainian trenches. Imagine those tanks pushing through wheat, the flattened stalks bending under their tracks. Crews inside saw only open land, no muzzle flashes, no scattered infantry taking cover. From their view, the battlefield looked empty. In truth, the field had already been converted into a gridded kill zone. Coordinates etched into Ukrainian computers, waiting only for approval. Inside command posts, what could have been panic turned into deliberate rhythm. With feeds of live targeting data, officers no longer debated where the attack would land. They watched it in progress with enough clarity to mark the sequence of strikes before the convoy even reached effective range. Each decision became less guess and more choice, shifting control of the engagement away from the armored column and into the hands of those with better information. Detection, however, was only the opening act. Seeing armor was one thing. Destroying it required firepower positioned far from the battlefield, waiting to be unlocked with those very coordinates. Tanks were built to outgun infantry, not to outrun math, and the math was lethal. The crews inside the Russian column believed their armor gave them the upper hand. They carried machine guns, thick frontal plating, and a long history of smashing through infantry defenses. But none of that mattered against the silent geometry already turning against them. While their treads dug into the soft earth, far behind the lines a single unit waited, still and unseen, its barrel angled skyward, ready to receive the numbers that would turn a calculation into destruction. 17 kilometers away, hidden in cover, the M109A6 Paladin sat in complete quiet. At first glance, it looked like an older system, a tracked artillery piece designed decades ago when Cold War strategies assumed exchanges of massed fire. What the Russians could not see was the difference between that history and the version facing them now. This Paladin was integrated with modern systems the original designers never imagined. It didn't need to creep forward to the line. It didn't need to risk exposure by hunting for a target. Its entire purpose was to act as a mathematical executioner, receiving data and responding before tanks could finish turning their turrets. Inside the vehicle, 3 soldiers worked with calm coordination. One monitored the computer, another handled loading, and the gunner focused on fire commands. They knew the pressure outside, armored columns pushing toward vulnerable defenses. But their environment was one of screens, timers, and numbers. Against a formation of Russian tanks and carriers, it looked almost absurd. 3 men and 1 vehicle against dozens. But the balance wasn't in steel mass. It was in the loop between eye in the sky and weapon on the ground. When the Phoenix drone marked the targets and relayed the coordinates, the Paladin's computer performed the rest. Over 130 individual calculations ran instantly. Wind direction, barrel wear, air pressure, propellant temperature. Nothing escaped the equations. What once demanded minutes with range tables and manual adjustments unfolded in seconds. Every calibration aligned with the certainty that, if a shell left the barrel now, it would land exactly where the drone confirmed the target stood. This removed hesitation, and in artillery, lost seconds are lost battles. Then came the most punishing feature, multiple rounds simultaneous impact, known as MRSI. Instead of firing one shell, waiting for the result, and adjusting, the Paladin used its computer to fire several rounds back to back, each at a slightly different angle. The arcs meant they would all land at nearly the same moment. For troops on the receiving end, the effect felt like a sudden avalanche, several detonations slamming down together before any command could react. The Russian column never anticipated that rhythm. 6 shells screamed in from invisible heights, their trajectories hidden until impact. 2 BMPs vanished in fireballs, metal torn apart in seconds. A T-72 on point took a crippling hit that locked its track and forced its crew to scramble for cover. Dust, smoke, and burning fuel spread confusion. What had been an organized push forward now looked like fragments of a convoy, some vehicles trying to maneuver out, others frozen by shock. Tank gunners who had trained to duel other armored vehicles suddenly faced explosions from angles they couldn't predict or counter. Tanks once dominated battlefields by sheer numbers, their heavy armor and firepower forcing defenses to collapse. But what happened at Dresbah showed something different. Numbers did not matter without precision support. A tank column that looked powerful on paper became vulnerable once its position was exposed, and time strikes dismantled it, piece by piece. Wars are no longer decided by who fields the most steel. Victory now belongs to those who combine sensors, rapid data, and human decision. The tank isn't gone yet, but its dominance is fading, and the next clash will reveal if armor adapts or disappears.